My name is Satie, I'm 36 years old and I live in Asheville, North Carolina. That morning I woke up earlier than usual because the house had already come alive since dawn. My mom was baking almond cookies in the kitchen. My dad was sitting on the porch reviewing the printed guest list from the night before. And I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the pale turquoise dress I'd picked 3 weeks earlier for my little brother's big day, Mason's wedding. Mason is my only sibling, 5 years younger, and the pride of our family. He's energetic, funny, and could melt anyone with just a half smile. Today, Mason was marrying Claire, the woman our whole family adored, and I, as his sister, wasn't just happy. I was deeply moved. My husband, Jared, had left the house early, saying he had a last-minute client meeting. "I'll be at the church about an hour before the ceremony, don't worry," he said, kissing my forehead as he walked out. His voice was warm, his gaze familiar, but something about it made my heart skip. I told myself it was just the emotion of the day. I'm an accountant at a major pharmaceutical company, rational, not prone to emotional swings. In 11 years of marriage with Jared, I had never once doubted him. We had our usual little disagreements like any couple, but nothing ever serious. Until my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number lit up the screen. "Don't go to the wedding, check your husband's garage." I froze. The message was short, no threats, yet it chilled me to the bone. My hands trembled, my heart thudded wildly. Who sent this? Why? Some cruel joke? I looked around the house. Everything was normal. No one suspected a thing. I let out a nervous chuckle and tried calling the number back. A robotic voice answered. "The number you are trying to reach is unavailable." I texted, "Who is this?" but got no reply. I set the phone down and tried to distract myself by helping Mom in the kitchen, but those words echoed in my head like a knock that wouldn't stop. "Check your husband's garage." The garage? We rented a separate garage about 4 blocks from the house to store Jared's old SUV. His man space, as he called it. I normally had no reason to go there. I hesitated, torn between logic and instinct. Then I remembered something small, something I once thought was harmless. Jared had said he kept a spare key in the old wooden box where we used to keep handwritten love letters. I rushed upstairs, opened the closet, found the box. Just as I remembered, the tiny silver key lay beneath a photo of us taken in Charleston 3 years ago. I picked it up, my fingers cold. It felt like I was about to cross a line. Like I was sneaking. But what if I didn't? What if something truly was being hidden? I told my mom I was going on a coffee run. "You want Starbucks or Dunkin'?" I asked, then headed out. The sun was soft, the breeze light, but all I felt was this tight, suffocating weight inside. The quiet street led me to the garage rental lot. I counted each step, heart pounding. I found the right row, Unit 52. The key turned. Click! The door creaked open, and a wave of cold darkness swept over me. I turned on my phone's flashlight and scanned the space. The car, storage boxes, familiar tools. Nothing unusual. I almost exhaled. Until the beam landed on a large cardboard box, covered with a black velvet cloth. My heart stopped. I stepped closer. A voice in my head screamed, "Don't open it." But my hands were already pulling back the cloth. And everything changed in that moment. I hoped it was just old junk Jared hadn't tossed. But as the cloth slid off the box's edge, I knew there was no turning back. The first thing I saw was a beige handbag with a thin leather strap. Not mine. I recognized it immediately. It was the purse Harper, Mason's fiancée, had flaunted at the engagement party 2 months ago. She'd told me it was a limited edition from a French brand she had ordered from Europe. I dropped to my knees, heart hammering like a war drum. I pulled the purse out and saw a pair of pale pink heels underneath, the kind Harper often wore. There was even a sleek cylindrical perfume bottle, the exact scent I'd caught on her when she hugged me that morning at rehearsal. No. Why was her stuff here? I opened the purse. Inside was a wallet, Harper's ID, and a small laminated wedding invitation with Mason and Harper written on it. My breath caught, my hands were ice. Beneath the wallet was a thick stack of photos. I pulled them out, and my entire world shattered. Jared and Harper. At a lakeside resort. In one, they were standing close, holding hands. In another, Jared kissed her cheek as she beamed. Yet another showed them lounging side by side on sun chairs, sunlight dancing across their carefree faces, as if they owed the world nothing. I stumbled back and collapsed onto the cold concrete. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just froze. Every promise, every tender moment from the past decade, destroyed by a few silent photos. I tried to breathe, but it wasn't over. At the bottom of the box was a thick envelope, no name on it, just a scrawled note in blue ink. Hold this for now. Don't let Satie see. I opened it. Inside were printed text message screenshots. I didn't need to read them all to know what they were, but I did anyway. Because I needed to be sure I wasn't imagining this pain. I wish that night never ended. Once the wedding's over, I'll find a way out. You know I don't love Mason. They don't need to know as long as we know we belong together. By the last message, my hands were shaking uncontrollably. This wasn't just betrayal, it was premeditated. Jared, my husband, and Harper, my future sister-in-law, had conspired to make fools of us all. I stood up, eyes burning but dry. I couldn't fall apart now. Not yet. I took out my phone and snapped photos of every item, every message, every picture. Then I wrapped them in a clean cloth from the car and gently placed the bundle into my trunk. I didn't know what I would do next. But I knew one thing. I wouldn't let Mason walk into a marriage built on lies. On the way back, the world outside my window looked warped. I felt nothing for the sunlight, for the passing cars, or the pedestrians. I was walking through a nightmare, forced to stay calm, because out there, a wedding was about to begin. It parked a few blocks from the church. I didn't go in. I sat in the car, gripping the steering wheel, trying to stay steady. One question kept circling in my head. How do I tell Mason? I couldn't ruin the ceremony in front of 100 guests, but I couldn't stay silent either. I pulled out my phone, searched Mason's name, and called. My heart pounded with each ring. Hey, sis? Mason's voice was cheerful, light. I swallowed hard. Can you meet me for a minute? Alone, before everything starts. Are you okay? He paused. What's going on? It's Harper, I said. My voice trembled, but it was steady. I need to talk to you about Harper. He agreed to meet me in the garden behind the church, a quiet spot, far from the growing buzz inside. I got there first, standing beneath the magnolia tree, the breeze gently swaying my dress. My heart was heavy. My hands clenched the small bag filled with evidence I never imagined I'd have to show my brother. On his wedding day. Mason arrived a few minutes later, tie slightly crooked, hair not fully in place. He smiled when he saw me, but it vanished the moment our eyes met. You okay? He asked, voice lowered. I took a deep breath, then held up the bag. I found this in Jared's garage. Mason frowned but said nothing. I handed him the bag and motioned toward the stone bench nearby. Mason, I don't even know where to start, but you need to see it with your own eyes. He opened the bag, pulling out the contents one by one. First Harper's wallet, then the photos. At first his face remained neutral, but the deeper he went, the tighter his lips pressed together, and the darker his expression grew. I saw the exact moment his heart broke, when the photo of Jared kissing Harper under the golden sunset appeared, his arm wrapped around her like she was the only woman in the world. Mason looked up at me, eyes lost. Are you sure? This is real. I nodded and handed him the printed messages. I wish it wasn't, but it's all there. The texts they sent each other, promises to handle things after the wedding. They've been planning this for a long time. He held the pages, eyes scanning rapidly. His hand began to shake. His shoulders slumped. I sat beside him, silent, and placed a hand on his back, like I used to when we were kids and he got a bad grade or was teased at school. But this was different. This time, Mason's whole world was collapsing. After a moment, he whispered, I thought I was happy. I thought I'd found the person I could build a life with, but I gently squeezed his shoulder. You weren't wrong for believing in someone, Mason. They were wrong for taking advantage of that belief. He sighed, eyes still fixed on the papers. When did you find out? This morning, I got a message from an unknown number. Don't go to the wedding, check your husband's garage. If it hadn't been for that, I would have never known. He looked up. Who sent it? I shook my head. No idea. No reply, number wasn't saved. Silence hung between us, broken only by the sound of distant wind chimes and the choir rehearsing nearby. Then Mason stood, placed the photos back in the bag, and exhaled like he was trying to steady his breath. What do you think I should do? He asked. I stood with him, looking into his eyes. I can't decide for you, but I know you deserve someone who truly loves you. And whatever you choose, I'm here. He nodded slowly. I can't walk down that aisle like nothing's wrong. I can't make promises to someone whose promises weren't real. I pressed my lips together. You're going to say something during the ceremony? Mason shook his head. No. I'll talk to Harper first, alone. I need to look her in the eye and hear her say it. I need to know if any of it was ever real, or if it was all a lie from the start. I touched his arm. Are you sure you can handle that? He looked at me, his eyes unusually steady. No. But I can't stay silent either. If I'm going to hurt today, I'd rather hurt with the truth. I nodded. We walked out of the garden together, both carrying different emotions but with the same resolve. I didn't know how Mason's confrontation with Harper would unfold, but I knew one thing. The truth was awake now, and it wouldn't rest until it was seen. I stood quietly off stage in the main hall, eyes fixed on Mason as he stepped onto the aisle with a steady, almost chilling calm. The background music played softly. Guests were settling in, smiling, waiting for a beautiful moment. No one knew a storm was approaching. One step at a time in the form of the groom. Claire, the maid of honor and Harper's best friend, was adjusting the bride's veil. Harper stood beneath the floral arch, stunning in a lace-sleeved white gown, eyes glancing repeatedly toward the main entrance. She was probably waiting for Mason to walk in, smiling, like every groom in the movies. But Mason didn't come from the main door. He chose a side path, veering left and heading straight for the stage without a word. When Harper noticed him approaching from the wrong direction, her face twitched. Then she smiled, trying to stay composed. But her eyes betrayed her confusion. Babe, she said softly as he neared, why'd you come in that way? Mason didn't answer. He turned to face the crowd. His voice echoed through the mic, clear and unwavering. Thank you all for being here today. I deeply appreciate every person in this room. But I'm sorry. There won't be a wedding today. Gasps rippled through the crowd. My mom shot to her feet, eyes wide. My dad frowned. The pastor looked around, bewildered. It was as if the air had vanished. Harper stepped back, her face paling. Mason, what is this? He turned to her. It's the truth, Harper. Something you never gave me. I don't understand. Her voice trembled. What are you talking about? This is our wedding. Mason reached into his pocket and pulled out the envelope I had given him. I know everything, Harper. From the beginning, you and Jared, the photos, the messages you sent to Satie's husband. It's all right here. She looked like she'd been slapped. No. No, this isn't real. Who told you? This is made up. No one had to tell me, Mason said, voice hard as stone. I saw the evidence myself. You left everything in Jared's garage. If you didn't want to get caught, you should have been better at hiding it. Harper staggered, her face white. She looked around for support, but no one would meet her eyes. Satie, she hissed, turning to where I stood. You did this, didn't you? You always hated me. You just wanted to ruin my day. I stepped out from the shadows, eyes calm. No, Harper, I was protecting my brother. You're the one who ruined everything, long before today even began. You hypocrite! Harper shrieked, eyes wild. You'll regret smearing my name. Mason stepped down a stair, his voice no longer cold but nearly broken. I don't regret knowing the truth. I only regret loving someone who wasn't real. Harper stood frozen for a moment. Then suddenly she tore off her veil and slammed it to the ground. Fine, she screamed. You want to cancel this? Great. I don't need this pathetic wedding. She spun around and stormed down the main aisle, the sound of her heels striking like thunder in the stunned silence. The doors burst open and she disappeared like a storm cloud. Mason stood still at the altar, shoulders trembling. I walked to his side and took his hand. The entire room remained silent, not a sound. Then, unexpectedly, Uncle Jerry stood and began to clap. Once, twice. Then the entire room erupted in applause. Not for the drama, but for the courage. For a man who stopped before the cliff's edge instead of plunging forward just to save face. I leaned toward Mason and whispered, "You did the right thing." He turned to me, eyes red but clear. "You saved me, Satie. I don't even know how to thank you." I shook my head, squeezing his hand. "You don't need to thank me. You just need to live honestly. The rest? We'll get through it together." I was in the bridal dressing room, helping Mason gather the few personal items left behind, when the door creaked open. I didn't need to turn around to know who it was. That familiar voice came barely above a whisper, like it was trying to tiptoe past its own guilt. "Ed, I can explain." And I clenched my fingers around the wedding photo frame Harper had forgotten, then slowly turned. Jared stood there, hair disheveled, tie loose, face pale and tense. For a split second, I saw the man who had once meant everything to me. And then, every beautiful memory shattered like glass. "Explain?" I raised my brow, voice low but sharp enough to slice through the tension. "Where do you want to start? Sneaking around with Harper? Or the things you said to me this morning like nothing had happened?" Jared stepped in, closing the door softly behind him. "I didn't want it to come to this. It was just a mistake." I let out a bitter laugh. "A mistake? You and her have dozens of photos in Lake Tahoe, a folder of texts longer than my quarterly reports, and a plan to end your marriage right after she married my brother. You call that a mistake?" He swallowed hard, eyes darting. "She pulled me in. Harper knows how to make you feel wanted, and you're always cold, always focused on work, numbers, deadlines." I felt my blood boiling, but I refused to break. "So that justifies betrayal? To me? To my family? To my brother?" Jared stepped closer, lowering his voice like a whisper could erase the damage. "I was going to end it. I swear. But it all came out before I could make things right." I stared at him, long and hard, not with anger, with quiet pity, for a man who threw away everything for something so cheap. "No, Jared," I said slowly. "It didn't come out before you made it right. It came out before you could keep lying." He flinched. I stepped forward, eyes locked on his. "I used to think our marriage was a safe place, that I could trust you. But today I didn't just lose a husband. I lost the last piece of innocence I had." "Satie," Jared gasped, "you're being too emotional. We can get through this. I can change. Just give me one more chance." I cut him off with a firm voice. "No tremble, no doubt. There are no more chances. Jared, you broke everything with your own hands. I'm not obligated to pick up the pieces just to bleed all over again." He hesitated, torn between stepping forward or walking away. Finally, he let go, his face darkening. "You'll regret this. No one will love you like I did." I pressed my lips together and nodded once. "I don't need someone to love me the way you did. I need kindness, honesty, the things you threw away." Jared stayed silent for a moment, then turned away, his fist clenched. The door closing behind him didn't make a loud noise, but the echo it left inside me was deafening. A chapter of my life had ended. No regrets, no bitterness, just a clarity that felt almost cold. I turned back to finish packing up Mason's things. On the vanity, Harper's wedding ring still sat there, glinting under the soft yellow light. I picked it up, slipped it into my coat pocket, and walked out of the room. I had saved my brother. I had also saved myself from a life that was only a shell. 1 week after Mason called off the wedding, Jared officially moved out of the apartment we used to call home. No goodbye, no note, just a few cardboard boxes quietly gone from his office. When I returned from meeting with the divorce attorney, it took me a few seconds to realize the hollow feeling I had wasn't sadness. It was relief. I began rebuilding my life like someone cleaning up after a storm. Everything I thought was solid had been blown apart, but in the rubble, I saw space. Space to plant something entirely new. The apartment we'd lived in for 11 years had become nothing more than faded memories. I decided to sell it, no hesitation, and when I signed the transfer papers, I didn't feel sorrow. Only the sensation of lifting a stone off my chest. I also handed in my resignation at the pharmaceutical company. That job used to be a point of pride, a symbol of stability and relentless effort. But now, it was just an old rhythm tied to lonely nights I once mistook for peace. I found a new job at a nonprofit that helps women rebuild after divorce, a place where broken stories are met with compassion, not pity. I never thought I'd take a turn like that, but every day I walked into that new office, I felt a piece of myself begin to heal. A few weeks later, I moved to a small riverside town called Waverly, about an hour from Asheville. I rented a tiny wooden house with ivy crawling up the porch and a backyard that looked out over a still lake. Every morning I brewed coffee, opened the window, and let the breeze carry birdsong through the silence of a peace I'd never known before. Mason was healing too. My brother hadn't quite found his smile again, but I saw something deeper in him. A wiser light, no longer naive. He started taking photography classes at the local community center, rediscovering a teenage passion he'd left behind during college and the years chasing stability. I remember the first time Mason brought his camera to my place in Waverly. He took photos of the lake,